everyone, welcome to WION Live Broadcast, New York City. I'm Susan Tehrani. First, let's take a look at this hour's headlines. State of emergency imposed in areas affected by the Kharkova dam breach in Kherson, Ukraine. 1,400 people evacuated today, says reports. Water level expected to continue to rise for 20 hours. Germany set to host the biggest air deployment exercise in NATO history with the intent of impressing allies and potential adversaries. Air Defender 23 exercises starting next week will see 10,000 participants from 25 nations. Turkey's lira plunged 7% to a record low in its biggest daily sell-off since the historic 2021 crash, as the newly elected government appeared to loosen stabilizing measures in its pivot to more orthodox policies. Beatrice Haddad Maia rallies from a set down to beat Ons Jabeur to become the first Brazilian woman in the Open era to reach the French Open semifinals.
But she's through to the semifinals to play Iga Swiatek or Coco Gauff. What a breakthrough and what physicality.
Months after launching an investigation, the world still does not have a concrete answer to the question, who was behind the Nord Stream blast? But a Washington Post report now claims that the attack was carried out by a group of special Ukrainian servicemen. Not only this, the report further claims that the Biden administration knew about it months in advance. More in our next report.
Since the dreadful day of 24th of February 2022, when the war broke out between Russia and Ukraine, the world has been on its toes. Both the countries are trying to sabotage each other's attempt to win the war. But as the attempt continues, the world has been scratching their heads to unravel the mysteries of war. Remember the Nord Stream pipeline damage? For months, a guessing game has been playing out worldwide. Who was behind that attack? Who tried to sabotage a critical infrastructure? But now perhaps we know the answer. A new report suggests that the US received intelligence from a European ally last year that the Ukrainian military was planning an attack on the Nord Stream natural gas pipeline. According to the report, the Biden administration received an intelligence input that Ukraine had a plan for an attack on the Nord Stream pipeline. A European intelligence service reportedly told the CIA 3 months before the actual attack.
This new report that was obtained by the Washington Post signals that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was allegedly kept in the dark regarding this plot, and it was allegedly led by the commander-in-chief of Ukraine's armed forces. Again, the Washington Post reports that the CIA shared the summary and this intelligence with Germany and other European allies as soon as June of 2022.
In September last year, the underwater explosions disabled the prized natural gas links from Russia to Germany. The report claims the Ukrainian military was planning an attack using a small team of divers, adding that the divers reported directly to the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces. The plot is strikingly similar to one now being considered by the German investigators and some European publications as well. Earlier, many European governments had suspected that Russia was behind the blasts, but Moscow has maintained that the sabotage was sponsored by the US and its allies. Ukraine has vehemently denied any links to the attack. But if you see, the latest mystery which remains unanswered in the war is the dam explosion in the Russia-controlled area of southern Ukraine. The Soviet-era Novokakhovka Dam in the occupied Kherson region unleashed a flood of water. Thousands of people are at risk as the flooding could be catastrophic. Ukrainian authorities say 16,000 people are in flooding critical zones, and evacuation efforts are ongoing. The massive breach in the dam with water surging through it is just one of the latest incidents that have happened since the war broke out. But with finger-pointing between world powers and lack of transparent probe, it would be a long time before we know who was behind both these attacks. Report by Susan Teherani from New York, WION World is One.
For more on this story, former U.S. intelligence officer Ron Alito is joining us live from Miami, Florida. Thank you so much for joining us, Ron, on WION. Well, it seems like there are pieces of the puzzle coming together after this report by the Washington Post, which was initially allegedly shared on a platform by that whistleblower, Jack Teixeira. What do you make of all of this and the U.S. involvement, at least knowing far in advance that the Nord Stream 2 might have been blown up?
Yes, hello. Well, what this intelligence report says is that Ukraine, the government of Ukraine, they had a contingency plan so they can try to blow the Nord Stream. So they have a plan, at least. It's not that they did it. It's not that they are the ones who blew the Nord Stream, but according to the leak and according to an European intelligence agency of a country, of a given country, is that the Ukrainians had at least a contingency plan. But this doesn't mean that they are the ones that did it. Actually, I'm inclined to believe Seymour Hersh. Seymour Hersh did a very deep investigation into this. And his conclusions are that the United States is the one that is behind the blow of the Nord Stream. And if we look at the evidence, we have Joe Biden, the President Biden, saying on camera about a year ago, saying that the United States will stop the Nord Stream. Victoria Nuland, the very high official at the State Department and the person who initiated the coup in Ukraine in February of 2014, she also said that the United States will stop the Nord Stream before it happened. And after it happened, after the Nord Stream was blown, Victoria Nuland went to Congress under oath. And she said that she's very happy and the United States government is very happy that the Nord Stream is at the bottom of the sea, her literal words. So most of the evidence points to the United States. But what this report says is that the Ukraine, at least they have a contingency plan to do it.
That's right. Everything goes back, really, when we hear about the Nord Stream, to that February 7th statement by President Biden that said there won't be a Nord Stream if Russia attacks Ukraine. This was in February 2022. Apparently, this evidence was shared with Germany and European allies as early as June of 2022. And then you had multiple Security Council meetings called on by Russia to try to get to the bottom of this. And a European investigation is still underway. Does this put the war efforts by Russia into a new phase?
Well, Russia always pointed out that they didn't do it, that they didn't blow their own pipeline, because this was a joint venture, Russia and Germany. And they said, we didn't blow our power line. If we want to cut the gas to Europe, the only thing we need to do is close the bulb. That's it. We don't have to blow and destroy our infrastructure that hopefully in the future we plan to open. So Russia always said if the United States is behind, or at least some other NATO country is behind, Now, what Seymour Hersh always said is that the United States is behind. And many people in Europe believe that the United States is behind. For example, Radoslav Sikorski, the ex-foreign minister of Poland, the next day that the Nord Stream was blown, he immediately went to Twitter and he said, "Thank you, USA. Thank you, United States, for doing this, for blowing the Nord Stream." So a lot of people in Europe believe that it was the United States. Russia says that it was the United States, that they didn't do their own pipeline. And now this report saying that Ukraine, at least, not that they did it, but at least they have a contingency plan. And that's very normal. Many military people, they have contingency plans. The government, the militaries of many governments, they have contingency plans for whatever situation they have. They want to do it in the future if they decide to do it. It's not that they will do it. It's not that they did it, but they have at least contingency, emergency plans, just in case they have to do something in the future. They have at least a plan on how they will do it. So that's very normal.
I guess we'll have to wait and see how Russia, if and when, decides to retaliate regarding this. Thank you for sharing your expertise and experience and insight with us, former U.S. intelligence officer Ron Alito, and we look forward to having you back on WION very soon.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's stay with the war, where devastation targeting a dam in South Ukraine has unleashed a wave of flood havoc and far-reaching consequences. The development has unleashed two very real phenomena. One, a massive humanitarian ecological disaster, and two, a vicious blame game cycle. Ukraine and NATO have accused Russia of blowing up the dam, while Russia calls it part of a desperate Ukrainian game plan. Thousands are fleeing their homes as the breach of the Russian-held dam flooded dozens of villages and parts of a nearby city south of Ukraine. Streets and homes in Kherson were waist-deep in water, and boats were in operation throughout the day to evacuate people. An official in Kherson said close to 14,000 people had been moved out. The United Nations warned that hundreds of thousands could be affected on both sides of the front line. Russia controls the left bank of the Dnipro and the dam itself, and Ukraine holds the right bank. Each side has, of course, blamed one another for causing the damage that triggered the latest crisis in the conflict. Ukraine has accused Russia of deliberately blowing it up. Moscow may have feared that Ukrainian forces would use the road over the dam in its counteroffensive. Russia, on the other hand, has called it a Ukrainian act of sabotage. Kremlin says the sabotage would deprive the Crimean Peninsula of water. Apart from sustaining the lives of thousands of people, the dam also provides cooling water for the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. The power plant, which is hundreds of miles downstream, is currently under Russian control. Also, the vast farmlands, which are now overrun, could be rendered infertile for years to come. The ecological imbalance triggered by the flood will also take years to undo. Flooding and infrastructure damage has long been used as a warfare strategy, although their ultimate effectiveness has been more of an open question. Also, hydraulic warfare comes at a huge humanitarian cost. The Chinese nationalists used flooding on a massive scale in their war against the Japanese back in 1938. As many as 1 million Chinese civilians drowned in the torrent, while more than 12 million were displaced. 5 years later, the British Royal Air Force used bombing of a dam as a strategy against the Germans. The raid briefly disrupted German wartime production and caused widespread flooding. The waters swept away more than 1,500 people. And at the end of last century, Saddam Hussein in 1993 diverted the Tigris and Euphrates away from a vast wetland in southern Iraq. It impacted an estimated 100,000 locals. The race for U.S. presidency is definitely on. There's a string of Republicans already officially in the race, with many ready to jump in. For the Democrats, incumbent Joe Biden is the only face so far that has widespread support. The major question, however, remains that if Biden is the Democratic nominee, who will compete against him in the final race for the Oval Office? The latest to join the race on the Republican side is a former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. He formally launched his bid for the Republican presidential candidate for 2024 on June 6th. Christie served as an advisor to Trump's successful 2016 campaign, but turned against him due to Trump's claims about 2020 elections being rigged. He ran for president in 2016, but ended his bid after a disappointing finish in the New Hampshire primary. Another big GOP candidate is former Vice President Mike Pence. He formally filed his paperwork on Monday. 2021's Capitol Hill riot affected the relationship between Pence and his former boss, Donald Trump. Ron DeSantis, Florida governor, has also positioned himself as a national figure by championing conservative causes. He has an edge over other candidates given his success of turning the nation's largest swing state red. U.S. Senator Tim Scott entered the race in May with a decades-long career in South Carolina politics. He launched his campaign with a vow to revive America's culture of greatness and turn around a nation in retreat. Coming from the same state, former South Carolina governor and UN ambassador Nikki Haley joined the race earlier in February. Her campaign includes emphasis on the need for a new generation of U.S. leaders, while calling for mandatory mental competency tests for politicians over 75 years old. Other Republican candidates also include former two-term Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson and Vivek Ramaswamy, an Indian-American biotech entrepreneur with no previous political experience. He talks about America's culture in decline. What do the polls say? Among the Republicans, Donald Trump has been way ahead of the pack with around 53%, followed by DeSantis with around 21%. Mike Pence hovering at just about a 5%, Haley at over 4%, and Ramaswamy at 3%. They are way behind in the numbers. Meanwhile, Tim Scott has over 2% of the Republican support. The race is going to prove crucial to decide the contender for United States' 60th presidential election in 2024, which is fast approaching.
For 1,000 generations, what America has done for me.
A surprising merger has ended a civil war in the world of professional golf. The announcement of the partnership between the three main golfing organizations, the PGA Tour, DP World Tour, and Live Golf, ended a feud that has dogged the men's professional game for the past year. The deal also stands to produce benefits for former President Donald Trump. The merger is set to benefit the Trump family business by increasing the prospect of major tournaments continuing to be played at Trump-owned golf courses. Also, the outcome is the latest example of how proximities between Donald Trump and Saudi Arabia have proved beneficial for both sides, even as it prompted intense ethical scrutiny and political criticism. Riyadh's sovereign wealth fund is the force behind the upheaval in the golf world. But even as Riyadh injected new money and competition into professional golf, Saudi Arabia has been accused of using its wealth to buff its global reputation as well and obscure its human rights record through sports. Live Golf is a Saudi-funded breakaway professional golf circuit. Ever since its establishment, Donald Trump and his family have aligned themselves with Live against the PGA Tour. This was unfolding at a time when the golf establishment in the United States and Britain moved to shut Trump's courses out of major professional competitions. Live soon became the Trump family's ticket back in the world of global tournaments, with events last year at the family's golf courts in the U.S. and abroad.
And I have no doubt that it'll be one of your great championships.
At a luncheon that was catalyst for the founding of the PGA of America and the PGA Championship. Today, the PGA of America is
Actor Cuba Gooding Jr. has settled a civil sex abuse case moments before It went to trial. The Jerry Maguire star reached a settlement with a woman who sued him for $6 million on the accusation that he raped her a decade ago. The decision came minutes before jury selection was supposed to begin. This deal ensures that the Oscar-winning actor will avoid having details of the alleged assault aired in court. Previously, a judge had ruled that the accuser would have to reveal her name in the trial. However, the move towards settlement also means that she won't have to reveal her identity. The woman has accused the actor of luring her to his hotel room and raping her afterwards. They met at a restaurant in Manhattan. Gooding Jr. has continued to deny the allegations and has claimed that it was all consensual. Winds carried smoke from the Canadian wildfires southwards, triggered air quality alerts here across the United States. We leave you with these visuals.